Happy moment to you. The technology, I could not be more thrilled, is working. I tested it 77 times, and I think it's finally working. So hopefully you can see me. Hope you can see the board. Lovely whiteboard. So I've been wanting to put these classes online for a long time as well. And this particular class is called False Beliefs. I created it 20 plus some years ago, based on kind of a hybrid of therapy kind of things that I was learning about my own trauma and the healing of that, and things I was learning from my spiritual teacher and concepts. And so I sort of put it together in an attempt to kind of help my two-leggeds kind of understand the power of a belief system and the understanding that that's not like something set in concrete, that is something that we can shift and we can influence now as adults. So 20 some years ago, 22 years ago probably, this was, again, it was a hybrid of all those things. Since then, science has proven everything that I'm about to show you. So I love that. Don't you love that? I mean, when it's ooey, people are like, well, maybe, maybe not. But then as science, they're like, oh, let me look. So Google everything that I'm about to say, because it's all there in science somewhere. But also it's just deeply embedded in kind of spiritual concepts and therapeutic understandings of how our healing and our mind works. So let's see what we see. Anyway, so it's called False Beliefs is the name of the class. So it's based on this ancient, and I mean ancient, concept that our thoughts, our belief, are creating is our thoughts, and our thoughts are creating our experience. And this is a literal, I should tell you now, I learned to spell phonically, so if I'm misspelling something, sound it out. And this idea is actually in every major religion. It's there's findings of it in Sanskrit, which is before the written word. So it's a very ancient sort of known concept that our belief system is creating our thoughts, and that is quite literally creating our experience. So oftentimes, if someone's coming to therapy, or the work that I do with the women in the jail, in theory, the experience that the person is having is not exactly what they want, not exactly what they deserve, not exactly what the design of their life, all the good that is theirs to have. So if you back the theory up, if you're not getting everything into the experience that you deserve, which is good, reminder, then you must be operating off of a false belief system. So years ago, I do know there's an I in there. Years ago, 20 some years ago, the studies were showing that your belief system was kind of locked in around by the age of 11 or 12. Now they're looking at 6 or 7. Good luck. Parents, God bless you. But it's just, there's so much that the little tiny brain is formulating and pulling information in and forming beliefs about how the world works. What's really important to understand, when you're that little, your brain isn't processing, oh, mom and dad had a bad day and that's why they're yelling at me. Or, oh, mom's a heroin addict and that's why she's locked herself in the room and won't make dinner. The little tiny brain formulates what's happening around them as being about them, right? So when I look at this kind of idea, and I would love to think you're playing along and writing this down and doing this for your own journey, because that is why I'm doing class, is for you to be able to do it, write it down. So to look at your own journey. So now, many people have very dramatic or very horrific and very, identifiable sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, things like this that you can point to and you can see, oh, all these things that I learned. I learned that those who love me hurt me. I learned those who love me don't protect me. Those should be really kind of classic false belief system. So those who love me hurt me. Those who love me don't protect me. But there's also sort of a subtle thing in not dramatic or obvious kind of abuse. Let's say both parents are working. They're both really loving as much as they can, but they're just not really present, right? And at the end of the day, the child, everybody else has a daddy that goes to the daddy and daughter and daddy's school dance. Everybody else's parents are at the soccer game. So unless there's some explanation for that, what is wonderful about children is they have this amazing ability to, kind of bring information in and understand it and kind of embed it. But if there's no real explanation, no real serious, like, here's what's going on, then the child is left to their own, again, their young mind that is hyper-focused on it's all about me. So they're learning through that experience unless there's a lot of verbal communication about what's going on. So there could be something like people who say they care about me don't. So the idea, because you're doing this now, I'm putting that out into the university, writing this down. And for the end of the class, you want to try to get to at least 10, but 10 is a good number. And so, again, you're looking at what was happening in the world around you and what were the messages you were getting about the world in general. Let's say that your parents got divorced and your mom had a bad feeling about your dad, and so your mom says things like, well, he was no good. Men are no good. Boys are going to let you down. They're always going to let you down. So beloveds are hurtful, do hurtful things. And if your dad or mom go off and they don't come back or they don't do their kind of participate in your life, those who love me leave me. Now, if you have parents at home, but maybe they're a heroin addict or have addiction issues or have mental health issues, so they can't really care for you, and you're the oldest, and you have to take care of your brothers and sisters. You have to fix the meals. You have to make sure they're going to school. So you would learn something like, my needs don't count. Because nobody's looking after your needs. My needs don't count. I have to take care of everyone else first. And you get the idea. Do you like my handwriting? Everyone else first. So these are what we could now know is false, but when our little brains wouldn't know that. And so when you're doing this exercise, you're not putting your adult brain on it, whereas you understand what happened with your family. Maybe your mother was an addict, and now she's been sober for 10 years, and she's your best friend. So when you're doing this exercise, you don't want to put that version of your mother in your mind. You don't want to put the version of understanding in your mind. Sadly, for this exercise to work and be helpful to healing, you have to go back in that time when you were getting really hurtful messages from those around you. And that's what you want to focus on. That's what you want to write down. So to help you understand kind of how these work, I've got one from about my journey. So my journey includes sexual abuse from an uncle, and started in diapers and went on until I was around 11 or 12 years of age. My uncle and aunt lived nearby. Our families were very close. He had a lot of access to me. I would spend the night over there. I had a sweet cousin that I loved. And so there was just a lot of exposure that he had to me. But when I would spend the night over there, I would never sleep, couldn't go to sleep. And my aunt was always so curious. Why, Leslie, why aren't you sleeping? What's going on? What's going on? So one time when I was around 8 or 9, I told her in a little 8 or 9-year-old language what my uncle was doing. The next day, my uncle took me out into the backyard And he said, I know what you told your aunt. If you ever tell anyone again, I'm going to kill your parents and I'm going to kill you. And there was a small cat, well, a teenage cat, in the backyard. Picked up the cat, snapped the cat's neck, killed the cat. So I learned when I tell the truth, something dies. When I tell the truth, something dies. So now, to help you kind of understand, I don't underline that, to help you understand sort of how this works in your brain in terms of it's literally creating patterns, literally creating loops. So that loop was created when I was 8 or 9. So when I was 11 or 12, I had a cat at home, Jet, beautiful Jet. And she got sick. She threw up. Not horribly sick, threw up. Cats throw up all the time. Now, being the crazy cat lady, I can tell you this. So I told my mom and dad, Jet's sick. We need to take her to the vet. Well, when they throw up one time, you wait a day or two, right? And you see what happens. So my parents, outside of my sexual abuse and my that situation, my mom taught school, my dad sold insurance, he made breakfast from scratch every morning, my mom made dinner from scratch every night. So there was really just sort of this utopia kind of experience outside of the sexual abuse that was going on. So they cared about the cat, but it just wasn't reasonable to take the cat to the vet that day. That night, Jet died. So the next night, after Jet had died, somehow I formalized that Jet's death in my little tiny brain, now remember brains when they're little are just so, that my uncle somehow had taken over my parents. And I had what in clinical terms now is known as a psychotic break. So my little brain couldn't handle that. So in the middle of the night, I woke up. I'd had this psychotic break. So that's the way our brains take care of us. It's also magical and mystical how our brains can take care of us. So I had this psychotic break, which means my little thought patterns and broke. And I woke up and I thought my parents were trying to kill me. So I was going to call an ambulance or call the police and tell them. So I started screaming, which did wake up my parents. And I ran to the phone in the kitchen, back in the day when you had phones on the wall, right? The cord. And I'm screaming, and now my father's chasing after me, and he's like, Leslie, what are you doing? And I said, you're trying to kill me, and I'm screaming hysterically. And so he grabs the phone, hangs the phone, and he says, no, you're not. So long story short, I kept running around trying to find a phone, and at some point, we had a 2-story house. My grandmother was asleep upstairs. I got to the staircase, and I didn't want to wake up my grandmother. That was very kind. And so I sat on the staircase, and my parents sort of stood on either side so I couldn't get out. And in my little psychotic break, I pulled out most of my hair and the side of my head. I went crazy, right? And so at that point, it was fairly apparent to my parents, something is wrong. So they got me into therapy immediately. They got into a psychiatrist and I got medication. But I never spoke of the sexual abuse. So the psychotic break, what it did basically was just go, and then everything prior to that, as bizarre as that sounds, went dark. And over time, that got darker and darker and darker and darker. Now, I went through school, got my undergraduate degree, got my master's in marriage and family therapy. If you go and get your master's in therapy, you will learn somewhere in a book that if you have periods of time that are blank, that have no memories, that means the trauma was so severe that your mind is protecting you, and so something really traumatic was going on. So here I am, 22, 23, and I'm, life is pretty good for me at this point. And I think 12 years, 11 years of trauma, that sounds something we don't want to look at. So I didn't really look at it, right? And so I went on through my life. I graduated, started working at a little adolescent treatment program, Waxahachie, and I got my first little girlfriend. And I have been a pescatarian. I ate meat for years and years and years. So I didn't eat meat, didn't eat any kind of meat. And she was a big steak eater, chicken, tenders. And so every time I would go to tell her, sweetheart, I don't eat meat, I would go into the kind of panic attack you go to the hospital for. Mind you, I have no conscious memory of that event where he killed that calf. But every time I went to speak my truth to my beloved, I would go into a panic attack and sweat and just. So I started eating chicken tenders, steaks. And I just couldn't do it. I could not speak my truth. Couldn't do it. Didn't understand why, but couldn't do it. And yeah, here's the ooey ooey-ness. This is perhaps the ooeyest of things you'll hear this time at this class. But I was driving down a highway in Dallas and saw a cow truck. And I heard the cow say, "Why are you eating me?" And I was devastated. I was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm not going to do that again." And I had the thought, I would rather die than eat you anymore, and I'm so sorry. Made amends to the cow. So I went home that night, first little girlfriend all those years ago, and I said, "Sweetheart, I have to tell you something. We have to sit down, we have a serious conversation. I actually don't eat meat." And I literally said to her, "And baby girl, be very careful. One of us is going to die in the next few hours or days." And she was like, "Well, that's a little dramatic, isn't it? Can't we just have vegetables and fish?" So anyway, that example, as long as it was, really cements this idea that all these beliefs are embedded in thought patterns. So now we go back to science. So there's little science has proven all that our thoughts have their own unique patterns. As interesting as it is, like every snowflake has its own pattern, as odd as you can imagine. How does that even work in infinity? So the same kind of thing is now really known in terms of our thought patterns. So every time, just for the sake of, we're going to add one more. I don't deserve good things. I don't deserve good things. That's a common, any kind of trauma survivor or any kind of abusive home life, little child, there's going to be this message of I don't deserve good things or joy or love. And so we're going to do that as our little example here. So this pattern, let's say this is the pattern that says I don't deserve good things. I don't even like to say it because I know it's taking, it's still so important, our words. But for the exercise. So that's firing. Now that starts firing year after year after year after year, like my thought pattern. And it just becomes ingrained. You're not walking around every day going, "Oh, I don't deserve good things. Oh, I don't deserve good things." Quite on the contrary, you're probably like, why didn't anything good happen to me? What's going on here? Why do they get what they want? I don't get what I want. So we're not walking around with this sort of at the forefront of our mind. Certainly I was not walking around with that. So, but it's becoming further and further embedded, and it's just taking our life on a path that, honestly, we really don't have much of a choice of. Until we understand all of this and get a sense of how this works, we are just going on an automatic pilot path that was created before we were 7 years old. Prove me wrong, but it's really unsettling when you think about it in that way. So if you look at, if I firmly believe these things, that I don't deserve good, that my needs don't count, that people who love me hurt me, that I don't get to tell the truth, that I have to take care of everybody else first. If all of that is truly embedded, playing like a broken record, creating all of my actions, how's my life likely going to look? I'm probably going to have abusive, or at least bad, if not directly abusive, relationships. I'm going to take care of others at my own expense. Can you see that? Own expense? Should I be over here? Should I learn how to write an O? So your life, baby, you become addicted yourself. Addiction. Maybe you get into situations where you don't have financial security, financial disruption, financial bad. maybe you aren't able to kind of really just be at peace. You're just always frazzled, always anxious, uncertain. Maybe you get into other kinds of things that are really addictive personalities or things that are hurting you. So you're not having a good life. Certainly for the women in jail, that kind of becomes part of their journey that they get involved in. That's part of their outcome of what their life has created. So this can take really dramatic expression, but it's coming from this. And what we don't really ever look at is that this, once you grow up and you don't get into therapy and you don't get into some sort of healing really quickly, that becomes your normal. That's just normal. That's just how your life goes. So the concept of, my gosh, how on earth do we shift that? That seems like a mountain flowing or an avalanche going in one direction. So the way mine shifted, I feel like people, well, if you didn't remember the abuse, how you do now. I had hypnotherapy at some point, so part of my journey. But how I got through sort of shifting this, what is that? That is a fly. My spiritual teacher taught me about affirmations. Now, if you, probably in today's world, you've heard a lot about affirmations. I like to make two things very clear. The affirmations are extremely positive. So when you're writing affirmations, you want to make them extremely positive. It's not just I deserve good. It's I deserve all the good all the time in everything in every way. That's what you want with positive. And it's present tense. Has to be present tense. So my spiritual teacher, when she was working with her through my healing journey, part of my healing journey, I used to self-abuse. We call that a cutter today. And so she was trying to help me get out of that pattern, that self-abuse pattern that became normal for me, right? That was part of my normal life. Just self-abusing was normal. And so she taught me about affirmations, and she said, okay, when you have that impulse, self-abuse, say these 3 affirmations. I don't remember them now. Something like, my body is defined, I am healthy, I am safe. Something like that. I was supposed to say these 3 affirmations over and over again. So I remember I was walking my dog, and I remember thinking, I'm going to self-abuse. No, I'm going to try that thing that my spiritual teacher said. I'm going to try those affirmations. So I did. I said them, and I said them, and I said them. And then I thought, oh, it's not working. And so I self-abused. I got home that night, and I called my spiritual teacher. I said, thank you so much for that idea. I did try it. I am a compliant student. Didn't work. Do you have something else I can try tomorrow? And she said, well, how many times did you say the affirmations? I said, man, I had to say them 30 or 40 times. She said, try hundreds. Try thousands. Wow, that's a lot. So again, this is an embedded pattern. It's an embedded pattern. Year after year after year, it's been pulsating. So the thing that we have total control over, whether we want to admit it to ourselves or not, we do have total control over our thoughts. You're like, oh, no, I don't. Oh, they just go crazy. Oh, no, you do. Yes, you do. You can scream no in your head. I used to, no. I would do some gentle tapping. Don't do a rubber band. That's reinforcing you deserve to be hurt when you're, no, stop the thought. And then replace it. What I learned to replace mine with was, I am pure love, I am pure light. I am pure love, I am pure light. Man, I have said that billions of times, and I kid you not, billions of times in the last 30 years. So you do have control of your thoughts. And that's what an affirmation is it's working on this embedded pattern. Now here's where science gets interesting. You can Google it, and I don't really understand it other than how I'm going to explain it to you. But I do know this to be true, that our brain is able to make new thought patterns, create new thought patterns. So trauma therapy, trauma healing, and you really need a trauma therapist, is usually a 1 to 7 year process. It took me 8 years of really intensive therapy. I've been in therapy for over 20 years. I love therapy. Who couldn't love therapy? But anyway, really trauma therapy is like intense therapy is a long process. It's a long process. And oftentimes, sadly, things get more dramatic and more worse. Get more worse. But anyway, so the process is repetitive. So as you're learning these affirmations and you're saying them hundreds and thousands of times, what is literally happening to this pattern when they have somebody on the, like, it was an MRI machine or somehow where they scan the brain and they kind of prompt the person, say, I am not worthy. Think that. It fires just like that. Then they prompt the person, say, I am worthy. And something happens. I mean, this is a board. It's not like that. But something happens. There's a little flare. There's a little flash. There's a little something that says, it's not like that other thought. But this is such an embedded pattern. Again, that doesn't do much. I am worthy 100 times a day for a year. Well, that's a little bit more of a dramatic sort of something. That little thought pattern is kind of wiggling around going, I don't feel comfortable. That's weird. And I am worthy 100 times a day for 2.5 years. I am worthy 200 times a day for 3 years and 5 months. Again, it's not for the faint of heart. Literally, though, once at some point, there comes a tipping point where your brain creates a new pattern that says, I am worthy. I am worthy. So, what is interesting about this process that I think is really significant to try to understand? Because this concept of your thoughts create your life, that's pretty well known. Before Oprah's ended her show all those years ago, she read a book called The Seat of the Soul, S-E-A-T, Seat of the Soul. Kind of got her turned on to this kind of metaphysical, kind of ooey stuff. And she's, got everybody else on fire on this idea. Your thoughts create your experience. Yes, absolutely. But what we've forgotten is the most core concept. In some ways, people are starting to try to unravel this now more, but it's the belief that's creating the thought. So you're not using your affirmations to change your experience. You're using your affirmations to change your belief pattern. So in order to get a new brain pattern, a new cell pattern, you have to change your belief, the feeling, the unconscious feeling that's operating us, right? So I can sit on my couch all day. I am happy, I am joyous, I deserve good. And if I'm in the back of my mind saying, you're an idiot, you're stupid, that's not going to ever formalize. So you have to keep going until you get to that feeling it. So people say when you're trying to manifest something, what does it feel like to have what you're trying to manifest? So in the same sort of emotional healing, how would I feel? How would a person who knows I deserve love react to this situation? If a person, I could intellectualize that. How would a person that knows they deserve love, how would they respond in the situation? Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to act as if, boy, I tell you, if you just want to change your life, go to a 12-step program. I mean, they've got everything. Ultimately, it's just the pattern. It's just the formula for all healing. But that's a beautiful 12-step saying, act as if. So you're acting as if to trigger a new belief system, to get your body, your cells, your thoughts to go into alignment with a feeling that I deserve good things, And so also what's interesting, and this is the saddest part of the formula. So at some point that I'm immersed in these beliefs, as my life moves forward, before I understand what I need to do to heal, there comes a tipping point where my belief system on the negative side is so embedded that if something on the external comes in to challenge that belief system, I will destroy that. So if I believe I don't deserve love, I don't deserve a loving beloved, then let's say a loving beloved does appear. A loving beloved who doesn't really want anything other than my good. Authentically, this man or woman is going to help me. I am going to destroy that person. I am not going to allow that person into my world because my belief system is overriding any kind of intellectual thing I might be able to have going on. I'm going to destroy that relationship, get rid of that person, because I have to preserve my belief system when it's in this negative thing. And that's why, but the same formula, once you start shifting and you start getting the positive, then you're like, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. You're not treating me well. No, 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 no. I deserve good. I deserve good. Love that. Love that. So, does this kind of make sense? I wrote a little notes. Let me make sure I got all my little things. Let's see if I wrote everything on there that I write on here. It's been so long since I've written it all out. Yes, I think we hit all the important parts. So now, as in all classes, you have homework. So this is where the real, we don't work. Conscious choice. We're going to make a conscious choice. So again, it's interesting. The language we use, work. That sounds, I've never used that H word, hard. But conscious choice. Things aren't going, I don't have everything in my little experience that I deserve. I know I deserve good, but it's not all firing. So let me make a conscious choice and do some of this. So as you're thinking about your affirmations, what I always give my two-legged son people, it sounds like a lot of work. The idea that you're going to write down 100 different affirmations. Now, people will, take a piece of paper and write "I am" 100 times, and down the sheet, "I am, I am, I am." Beautiful, happy, joyous, free, good, loved. Well, that does meet the letter of the homework. But if you really want to shift your life, then you're going to go back to the number 10 false beliefs, and you're going to write down the first false belief. Do you see mine? When I tell the truth, something dies. So you're going to write that out. Then you're going to write down 10 affirmations. Am I screaming? I feel like I'm screaming. 10 affirmations that contradict that false belief. I deserve the truth. Only good things happen when I tell the truth. I'm allowed to tell the truth in all situations, and all positive comes back to me. So you want these, you don't want them just to be 2 sentences, 2 words or something. You want to really, because you're trying to evoke a feeling. We're trying to work on this belief system. Remember, we're not just throwing thoughts out there to try to ping a new experience down here. We're trying to move energy around this feeling that when I tell the truth, something does. It's now this feeling, oh no, I'm allowed to tell the truth. In fact, good things happen when I tell the truth. In fact, I feel better. I feel good when I tell the truth. See? So then you come up with your second one. Those who love me hurt me. So then you write down the false belief. Those who love me hurt me. Then you write down 10 positive affirmations to that. Now remember, extremely positive. Those who love me always love me. Those who love me always do good for me. I get all good from all people that love me, that care for me, that take care of me. So in practice, the pendulum is so far over here. In theory, we want to bring that pendulum over here. But also, in sort of that is really our divine design, the divine right that we all, really do have perfectly joyful lives. But certainly for affirmations, we want them to be extreme. And they have to be present tense. So when you try to tell people in jail about affirmations, do affirmations, and you want to, I have all I need, I am perfectly happy and joyful. And they're like, I can't turn the lights off, and I can't go to the bathroom when I want to. So I don't really have all I need. So it's very hard. They're like, how do I say that? Well, if it's not in present tense, then you're not bringing that energy into you in your moment. If I say, when I get out of jail, I will be happy, joyous, and free. I am planting that seed in the future. And I live in the present. So I'm never going to bring that energy into my present. So whatever your situation is, as crazy as it might sound, you start saying that affirmation. If you're in an actively abusive relationship, you start saying the affirmation as if you have a healthy, happy, loving relationship. That's how this whole thing starts to shift. So those 2 things are really important. So You've got your 10 false beliefs. You've written 10 affirmations. That equals, easy math, 100. Then you have to, spiritual teacher time, use them hundreds, thousands of times a day. I used to have a jar, and I would just pick 3 for the day, and I would just say those 3, hundreds of times. I've seen people work with like 1 false belief a week. Okay, I'm going to take all these 10. I'm going to say 2 of them, each day, 100 times a day. But it really becomes, as I stutter, it really becomes embedded because of the repetition and because of the commitment to doing it consciously. And so that's how you create, this is sort of your own individualized affirmation foundation. So if you get sort of affirmations out of something else, or you read it and you think, oh, I like that, and you pull it in, that's one thing, and that's great. No harm can come from doing affirmations. But if you want to reprogram your brain, recreate new, or not recreate, but create new belief system, which you can, then you want to do off of your own personal false beliefs. I feel like I've been talking for hours. So now the cat is here and is going to join us. So that must be Spirit's cue to end. Happy moment. I love you. Check it out. Can't hurt you. Love you.